Hi, my name is Dylan Ferris, and this is my presentation on political corruption. So, some background on this moral issue. There are many things that make up political corruption, and a few of them are listed below. Abusing power in a high position of government for your own personal gain, interfering with the justice system, allowing other people to bribe you so they can get what they want, and lastly, like receiving any type of kickbacks. Political corruption has been a thing for centuries. It is referred to in the Bible and throughout history on many occasions. There are some limited positive effects, but the outcome of political corruption is typically very negative. The more political corruption, the less powerful the country typically is. So, next up is deontological and utilitarian ethics. So, deontological ethics. So, this would assess whether the actions that are occurring are good or bad. So, like, it's not focusing on the outcome; it's like focusing on the actual actions that are taking place. This says that political corruption violates many fundamental moral rules. Examples of this are like lying, exploiting people for your own personal gain, which is basically like manipulating other people, and many other things. And then utilitarian ethics would assess whether political corruption would have an overall negative or positive outcome on society as a whole. So it's looking at like the actual like the outcome of the situation, what's happening, like the outcome of political corruption. And while the political corruption that a person has may benefit that person and those involved, it harms the public's common good because they are being lied to and manipulated by people in power. The corrupter is acting in their best interest, not for the great good of all the people. The core principle, and this is kind of the core principle of utilitarian ethics. Next up is a few scripture passages that I thought kind of were good examples of political corruption, like in the Bible, I guess. So, first up is Matthew 21, verse 12. Jesus entered the temple area and drove out all those engaged in selling and buying there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who were selling doves. And then next is 1 Timothy 6, verse 5. And mutual friction among people with corrupted minds, who are deprived of the truth, supposing religion to be a means of gain. And then lastly, Isaiah 1, verse 23. Your princes are rebels and comrades of thieves. Each one of them loves a bride and looks for gifts. The fatherless they do not defend. The widow's plea does not reach them. And these are all just about like corruption, I guess. Some about political corruption, but just some about like general corruption in like people's lives. So the church's teachings on political corruption. All political leaders have a responsibility to help and protect their people. Also, there's two of the 10 Commandments that address the topic of political corruption. And they are, thou shalt not steal, and thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. And then in April of 2021, Pope Francis issued a sweeping decree to combat corruption in the Catholic Church. All gifts worth more than $50 must be disclosed. And according to Scripture, fidelity in small things is related to fidelity in important ones. The Pope wrote, citing the Gospel of Luke, just as being dishonest in matters of little consequences is also related to being dishonest in important matters. So now, here's like an expert's perspective on political corruption. So his name is James B. Jacobs, and he's an expert on political corruption and has written several books on the subject. Mr. Jacobs claims that it is very important to get rid of any kind of corruption regarding public officials. He says this is important because it will give the government a bad look and undermine the overall credit of the government, which will lead to countless problems in the future. And then, lastly, my own perspective on political corruption. So, political corruption is a very serious moral issue that has existed for many centuries. I mean, there's examples of it all throughout history. My father employs many different lobbyists in different states today. He has always told me there needs to be more laws to prevent money from influencing votes. He believes many politicians only care about staying in power and will do whatever it takes to be reelected. And because of that, they follow the money, not the good of not the good of people. And for the most part, political corruption leads to many negative things in society.